Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé F1 podcast number 744. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
Yeah, that's what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to cover some Formula One news because that's what we do on off weekends. We didn't have a race this past weekend, so we end up finding some news and we talk about it, and then we have some fun in the Albon. Well, you know how we do it. So anyway, before getting into the news, I have to introduce my guest, which of course means if you're watching on YouTube, you can see who my lovely guest is tonight. That's right. I got to go all the way to the right coast of America, nestled in our nation's capital, where she does a lot of really important things for really important people that really are important stuff. Has to do with numbers and stuff. It's the lovely, the redoubtable Grace, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I hope people are ready for this because we got 3 weeks in a row together, right?
I know, 3 whole weeks.
Seatbelt on, people.
After what have you been doing this, Grace? 17 years? Been doing this? Something like that?
It was long enough that when I tweeted during the Hungarian Grand Prix, Alonso 2021, I had to then explain to Flip like why that was a thing, right? Because
Right.
like that's how long these inside jokes go. That's pretty deep. That's a deep one.
It's always very difficult because we've been hanging out together since, well, it's like 15, 16, 17 years, something like that. We've been doing this a long time, and we have all these inside jokes that you just, you form over years, right, of doing these podcasts. And yeah, I get emails every once in a while. I say, oh, what do you guys keep talking about? Like Magic 8-Ball, shake, But that was back in the Barf 1 Honda days.
Yeah, Nick Fry, man. Those are they were watching, I guess it was a video on Spike. I can't remember now what the YouTube video was, but it was like, I just started like, oh, and that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so. Oh, and that's Nick Fry. So we have this whole joke about the Magic 8, like it was like this whole, menagerie of, and I couldn't remember the name of the guy who was in charge of Toyota, but I thought I did pretty good. But it was pretty funny though, that it was just like, we've been doing this for a while. There's a lot of stuff going on.
It was, there is. Yeah, because, it was like, who the hell's running this team? It's like the Magic 8-Ball. Shake. Shall we pit? Seems likely. Shake.
Bring them in.
Yeah. Oh, the old halcyon days, if you will. But now we find ourselves, much older and,
maybe
around
wiser.
the horn. Maybe. Doubtful on my part. Could be. I don't know.
Who knows?
It's hard to keep up.
It's overrated.
It is.
Wisdom.
Yeah, maybe. So, Grace, there was some news this week. I thought we'd get into that.
Sure.
And talk about some of this news, since that's kind of the fun thing.
Wait, you're not going to ask me at all about how the race went? Like every week, I feel like you ask me, what do you think about the race? And it's crickets, boring. And now we have
I just know you're going to say, thankfully, Salvatore is okay.
Wow, yes. So I think that
was a fireball. That MotoGP race, that was scary.
It sure was.
And that was our little boy PDR. Or no, Danny Pedrosa. DPR. Sorry.
DPR, right.
Yeah. PDR is Paul. Never mind.
Right. Well, that's
Paul
a fun accident. I meant to call Pedro De La Rosa, and I actually called Danny Pedrosa. That's a
see?
Very different personalities there, but
yeah, very.
It would be enjoyable. I'd go to that bar. That would be fun. Sure. They're both salty, so it would be fine.
Yeah, right. As long as Sutil didn't show up.
I'd say
be careful in a bar with Sutil.
Just throw in Jensen Button, since that's really all he does whenever he commentates, is just pick on whoever's nearby. Like that's really his ethos. Like, what can I say to offend you?
Yeah, he's good at that.
I don't know. I didn't know that was his secret skill, but I know now.
Who knew? So, Grace, you did watch the Hungarian Grand Prix. What'd you think?
I sure did. It was pretty exciting. I was, pretty excited for my boy Alonso, right? Like, woo, we did it. So, I thought that, the Hungary Grand Prix is not always the most exciting race, but I would often argue, because people, when we talk about like, if you could take a race off the calendar, what would you take off? Like a lot of people say Monaco, a lot of people say Hungary, right? Because it's Monaco without the boats, right? And I would always argue as a McLaren fan that you can't do that, because that's the only race McLaren to do really well because it's such a low downforce high speed, right? Which it was the only track they ever did good at. So, but now I guess we have to keep it on because it was a pretty good race. And Lewis is like, where is everybody? That was great. Like which is this again, I've been watching the sport for a long time, just like you. That was bizarre. Like I've seen a lot of things, but I was just like, what? And then George just like blown by everybody in the pits. And of course, at first we thought, oh, of course he's about to get a point. Something's wrong with the car. But there wasn't something wrong with the car, and he did get some points. So finally that happened. But
you had to think Lewis got there on the grid, looked around. He was kind of like, what the hell? Whoa, where is everybody? Damn it. They boxed. Yeah.
What's going on here? So that was by far one of the most bizarre things. But kudos to Esteban. Right on Alonso, and I'll support Alpine now. That's fine. And I know we're going to get into Vettel's issues, but I thought that was really great for that like moment when we can enjoy Vettel being on the podium. So
it was for that brief moment, so fleeting, really is podiums in Formula One these days.
Who doesn't love that guy now? So
yeah. Well, you got even Helmut Marko. He's a little upset about Vettel's podium.
He's upset about everything.
Well, he's kind of sitting there at the races lately going,
hey, what happened?
He's kind of like, he's a bit grumpy.
Why is he upset about them not finding enough fuel? Like, I just envision, again, we're going to get into this, and I hope I remember that I already made this joke, but what was going to be their evidence? Like Otmar Schnafnauer showing up with like, a vial of more fuel. Like, I found it. Here's the rest of it. Like as if they tipped the car on top of another car, like you do with like ketchup bottles or something, right? To get that last bit of ketchup, you put it in the new ketchup bottle. Like, that's what I believe, that they just like tilted the car upside down into some giant container. And that's how they're like, here it is. Here's the rest of our fuel. We're good
I
now,
had visions of Otmar out there on track with like a piece of cut garden hose stuffed down the fuel tank.
Exactly.
Siphoning the
all
rest.
Over the place.
Siphoning the rest of the gas out,
That's right. So I don't know. That was
for you youngsters that don't know, you could siphon gas out of a
Can you not do that
tank. Well, I could go do that now. Yeah, I used to do it when I was a kid. Yes. Yeah. But you take a hose in there and when it comes out and you can siphon, I don't know. Google it.
Just don't hold on to it for too long.
No, because that fuel tastes terrible. Yeah. So, so that was kind of crazy.
So it was a crazy race. And I mean, I'm glad that even though Red Bull is going to be our first story, but I am glad that at least we didn't have Silverstone leading into the summer break. This is a little bit more of a manageable race to have to live with for 3 weeks. We don't have to listen to quite as much of Christian Horner. I think I've had my fill after the British GP.
But you got Helmut now.
Cheap, lying, no good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life.
Yeah, he's not happy.
No, of course not. But, it's just like, all right, Red Bull, like, why don't you take a nap for 3 weeks?
Well, then you're going to love the first story we talk about.
I'm saying. Can't wait.
You're going to love this one. So, Red Bull and the Politics of F1 is the title from my story here. Adrian Newey, himself no stranger to being at the center of a lot of politics in Formula One over his numerous years as a world-class designer, says that this year has been unlike anything he's ever seen when it comes to politicking and lobbying against Red Bull. Are you ready for the quote machine?
No, I just think, I am. I'm always ready for the quote machine. I do enjoy when you read to me, but I just think, I didn't think anybody could top Ron Dennis. Well, apparently it's Christian Horner. Okay.
Yeah, it is Christian Horner.
Nice,
Ron. So this is what Adrian Newey had to say. Quote: "In many ways, it is a compliment to the team to find ourselves under such scrutiny from others. We have experienced this before, but I can't remember a time when we've received the same level of behind-the-scenes politicking and lobbying against our car. Possibly, if you look back when we were exploring aeroelastics in 2010 and 2011, then we were under constant scrutiny and would adapt to each changing set of regulation. we've been here before in the last championship battles with Ferrari, which involves some rows over bodywork flexibility as well. He says, in many ways, I think Red Bull have been scrutinized quite a bit this year, but I know Ferrari have in the past, as well as McLaren, and certainly, this is me talking, I'm sorry. But yeah, gosh, you'd think I'd put quotes around this and not quotes around the others.
No, I mean,
anyway.
I think we were all just thrown off by aeroelastics. I think it all just went downhill after that. Like, what?
I know. I kind of, I thought I was doing good with the whole quote thing. And then, I just, I don't know. I got to that word. And it was
no one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
I don't know. It's just kind of provocative.
He made it up. I don't know. It sounds like something.
Well, he's new. He can.
Sounds like something you use in the Olympics. I don't know. Right.
Like, so what I'm saying about this quote is this.
Yes.
In many ways, I think Red Bull have been scrutinized a lot this year.
Sure.
And I know Ferrari have in the past, and McLaren certainly have in the past, and certainly Braun and Williams during the double diffuser era. And then you can't forget about the whole J-damper era with Renault that they forced to change their dampers, and that immediately impacted Renault mid-season. So that was a big one, as well as a couple years ago with Ferrari's engine, right?
Yeah, I think and
their
cheating, right, cheating. Braun might have been cheating. Williams, they were thinking about it. I think there was a common theme here in this paragraph of teams that you've mentioned.
Oh, well, it could be. Well, this is what he continues. He says, but of course, when Mercedes started making noise about it, they weren't worried about what Alpha were doing. They were only worried about whether we were getting a benefit, which we really weren't. But there was a cost implication to changing that part, which obviously hurt. It is, however, a great testament to the depth of our team that we can respond to changes, and it's a great example of when our team is put in a corner, we can come out fighting and continue to be just as competitive. Now, having said that, I will say that with all deference to Adrian, I know everybody's like, oh, Red Bull, whatever. With all deference to Adrian, though, I do believe the level of lobbying and politicking is probably at its highest level, as that seems to be just like the norm these days in general. I mean, watching this all unfold, watching there's no measured approach anymore. It's all cancel culture, personal attacks, guilty until proven innocent, allegations of rule breaking, subterfuge, hints and innuendos. And I'm thinking, even when the likes of Chapman and Frank Williams and others were skirting the edges of regulations, we didn't see this kind of over-the-top reaction and mob mentality. And I was as surprised as anyone to see the comments from Mercedes and Red Bull, to be honest, over the last couple of weeks. And to be even more pointed, I was really put off by a lot of the fans' reactions and commentary over this. And I just feel like there's this vibe of, I don't know, just vitriol or anger. Or maybe it's because the money's so big now. I don't exactly know. And I'm not trying to be an apologist for Adrian, because I could map out many times when teams were put under a tremendous amount of politicking and scrutinizing. And certainly as a Ferrari fan, trust me, I can. But I don't know, there's just this lack of sort of decorum, even in disagreement. It's kind of like the fact that I can still like Ferrari and you can like McLaren, and that's perfectly okay to me. Heck, at this point, I like McLaren. I mean, who doesn't like McLaren and their comeback story? It's a great story. I happen to like Mercedes and Red Bull. I like both those teams. My favorite has always been Ferrari, of course, but that doesn't mean I can't like other teams too. And I just thinking, gosh, what's the deal? What's going on these days? I've already seen people, saying some pretty nasty things about Adrian's comments that I just read to you. And I'm thinking, I don't know. It's just, maybe it's just the bravery of being out of range, but who knows? But when we think about politicking and lobbying as a McLaren fan, one has to look no further than stealing the Ferrari manual and
Two
getting
pages.
right, all 20,000 pages of it, and then being fined 100, whatever it was, million or whatever that is.
I think some part of it is Red Bull is the new Ferrari, right? I think I said this on the last podcast.
You did,
right? Like,
yeah.
So I think some part of it is Red Bull does this themselves. Like, I feel like when they had the press conference with Bottas and Hamilton and Max Verstappen, and somebody asked Max Verstappen about the incident between him and Lewis, and Max was just like, I'm effing tired of this, and why do you keep bringing this up? And if I was the journalist, which I'm not, and this is why they have that profession and I don't, I would have been like, well, you might want to talk to Christian Horner, right? Like, why does this keep getting spun up in the media? Not because I, as a journalist, am sitting here going, let's make some stuff up about Red Bull. It's just that, like, Christian Horner has not stopped asking to talk to the management this whole time. So of course it's just going to keep getting recycled and recycled and recycled. If you as a team just said, yo, we're over it, the story would die. But Red Bull has nothing to gain from that, right? They have more to gain from this to continue to be a story and to continue to talk about the cost cap and continue to talk about how the rules should be clarified. But, even Drive to Survive, right? We watch that. We now we listen to the radios, right? We hear how much the, behind the scenes-ness goes on, and, calling Michael and talking to the stewards and all these things. So I just think that some of this churning is of Red Bull's own design, and that design is on purpose. Some of it is, right now we have social media. And so everything, depending on who's in your F1 Twitter feed, anything can get magnified, right? So sometimes people are like, oh my God, I can't believe people are like this. And I'm like, I must be Twitter friends with different people. Like, I have no idea what people are talking about when it's just based on what they see in the Twitterverse. That's, I don't know. I must not see the same things that other people see, but that's how it works, right? It's not a truth aggregator. It gives you what you like, right? So
a lot of mind vomit.
Yeah, and so I think you're gonna get always some amount of that, and you kind of gotta sort through it with your own filter now, unlike media might have filtered it before. But I think this is, I don't know. I mean, I think what's different is how we consume Formula One. I don't know that Red Bull is any different than Ferrari was 10 years ago, right? Like, I think that part of it is still the same. They're still always, well, I'm going to go, Michael, didn't you read my email? And, get James, tell him to call my, like, this kind of stuff always went on. I just think that now we're more privy to it because there's more content out there to consume, and people have more ways of spreading whatever they want to say, wherever they want to say it. I don't know. They're going to keep doing this, though.
Yeah, it makes sense. I feel like I understand what you're saying. And I would just say that there's a lot of discounting what Helmet or Christian or Red Bull says or does over this situation. And there's a lot of people saying, wow, that was really just, completely, that was definitely not classy, and et cetera, et cetera. I just try to have a little bit of empathy for whichever team it is that's in the situation that they're in. For example, even though I've been a Ferrari fan since I was a little boy, if Red Bull's got a flexi wing and McLaren's pissed off about it, I try to put myself in McLaren's shoes. And I think, yeah, I could see why they have a reason to get pissed off about it, right? If Haas has a situation where they came in and it escapes me now, a few years ago, they were pissed off about something, or if Aston Martin was pissed off that they've got a low rate car and everything now seems to be towards the high rate car. Now, it's easy for me to say, well, it's the same where everyone, Martin, you moron, should design a high rate car. That's easy to say. But they've spent a lot of money behind that, and they may not have had the resources or whatever it might be. You could see why they are frustrated by that, right? So from Red Bull's perspective, they go the last two races with a point. Lost the Drivers' Championship, lost the Constructors' Championship, and in both cases were basically hit by Mercedes, right?
Yeah, Bodis
Now
totally
that's
said, "Hold my beer. I'll take out both of them."
yeah. I mean,
Right.
yeah. He saw what Lewis did and said, "Oh, well, that's cute, Lewis. Watch me." Right.
Right.
And he took out both Red Bulls. So you can understand if you can't understand why Red Bull would be pissed off about that, then I don't know, man. Think about it a little bit longer. I have a little empathy. I can understand why they'd be pissed about it. Um, I get it. And no, have they handled themselves with decorum and civility? We could parse their words. I think Helmut Marko is going on at length about it, and you can dislike their personalities and all that kind of thing. Look, at the end of the day, what's the toughest thing Mercedes has had to face since 2014? They had 1 year when two of their drivers were getting butt hurt with each other, and you had Nico Rosberg, punting, Lewis off track, Lewis punting, and that was their biggest challenge, right? This year, Red Bull is making a legitimate race out of this season and going after them, and then to get knocked out in 2 races in a row by Mercedes, that's difficult to swallow from Red Bull's perspective, right? For Mercedes, it's kind of like, oh, well, whatever. But on the flip side of it, to be Mercedes, then I think, okay, now I'm going to try to put myself in Mercedes' place. Okay, look, I argued during the time, I don't think Lewis did anything untoward. He wasn't trying to do that. That wasn't his intent. You're not a 7-time champion by just plowing and T-boning people. That's not how he would have meant that to happen, but he certainly was going to get his elbows out, and that's what, it happened, right? Do I believe that Valtteri Bottas meant to go down and take out both Red Bulls? Of course not. That's not what it was a mistake. It's not what he even intended to do, but it's what happened. To get the kind of hatred and really unsavory comments by fans, either towards Mercedes, Bottas, or in particular Lewis, completely uncalled for, And if I'm Toto, I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, let's everybody ratchet it down a little bit, because right now we're just feeding and fueling a bunch of crap that doesn't need to be fueled, and so I understand that. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying in a long way around is it's easy to discount what Adrian Newey is saying. I can understand why he feels like there's really a lot of lobbying and politicking around that, because to be honest with you, I think Mercedes is really good at that. I think Toto's good at it, and they carry a big stick in Formula One because they're world champions, and I think they're good at it. So I understand. I don't discount it or dismiss it.
No, I mean, I don't I don't think that's what I was saying either. But I think
no, I'm not saying more.
I think it's both, right? And that's just life. When things go your way, it's a very different perspective than things aren't going your way.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Politicking has always been a part of the sport, I guess is my point. I just think that maybe now we have more access to what's going on. I think of how Spygate was covered versus how something like that now happens.
Can you imagine now?
Right.
Yeah.
So much more coverage and so much more discussion, and I think there's some real strength to that, right? I think that to be able to at a moment's notice just talk to some people about what happened here, or watch some YouTube videos and be able to kind of understand whether it's Julian Palmer's review of the race, or somebody's Formula One channel that's just some dude in his basement, right? Like you can get all these different perspectives now that you used to not be able to get, and that's really good and rich. But it can also it be too much, and people just they get into the narrative. But I think that happens in a lot of sports, right? Like people get really into oh, so and so is this bad guy in basketball. People always are talking about how terrible Russell Westbrook is. I'm like, well, clearly you don't understand how he is, because that's a false narrative, right? So it happens in other sports too. But
yeah, everybody likes a villain, in this sport.
I think Christian Horner, it's not on accident. I think that's one of the things. He knows exactly what he's doing, just like Toto Wolff knows exactly what he's doing, and they know exactly how to play this game. This is their job, right? I mean, we all have to do this on some level. Even if it's not to this level, you're always thinking about, well, I'd like to work on that project. How do I get on that project? Or who else is in this meeting that might remember my name later? So maybe I'll do, I'll work a little extra on this thing. You know what I mean? You're always trying to make sure that people know who you are and what you're good at, and that they should put you on their project. This isn't really that different in that sense. It's just ratcheted up a few levels.
Yeah, well, and it's keeping the pressure on too, because all's fair in love and war, right? So it's keeping the pressure on and keeping that narrative out there, and yeah.
Yeah, so I think it is. I think, but yeah, Red Bull is Red Bull, and they're the new Ferrari, and I think Helmut Marko and Christian Horner are doing what's in their best interest by keeping this in the media as long as possible. But sure as hell, I'd be frustrated too if I was Max Verstappen. Like, that race happened, I moved on. I don't care anymore. Why do you people keep asking me this question? Well, they're gonna keep asking these questions because that's what's in the news cycle right now.
Yeah, right. You know what else is in the news cycle? Valtteri Bottas.
Oh, he sure is.
Isn't he? Isn't he just?
Oh, Forge man. Yeah, well, it's not looking so good there.
It's not looking rosy. I think it, I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of, yeah. Give me your jacket, big boy.
He's lucky that when he was sitting out there on the tire barriers waiting for the scooter to come around to pick him up, that like Toto didn't ride by and go, I'll take your jacket, and just, scooter off again, right? Yeah. Like I that could have been.
You see him out there kicking his feet around, sitting on the tires. Look like Shirley Temple out there sitting on
like a little kid, dangling
his feet.
And Toto could have just rode up and said, no, I'm not giving you a ride on the scooter. I'm just like serving you your papers, and good luck with that.
Yeah, the Mercedes comes flying up, rear window comes down. Toto says, just looks at him, goes,
"Get down."
Takes off. Yeah. So it looks likely at this point that George Russell's going to replace Valtteri at Mercedes.
If not, George Russell's coy play that he's been doing for like these last 3 races.
Oh my gosh.
He's just going to look like a fool if they don't sign him.
Oh my gosh.
He has to know, because he's sort of like, what? Me? Why would they sign me? Little old me? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, get out of here, George. You know you're signed.
Oh, me? Oh, you're kidding. Act surprised, George.
Me?
So yeah. So I think that looks likely that he's going to be at Mercedes next year. Now, many believe that they may do a straight swap with Williams. So they'll move George over to Mercedes, move Valtteri back to Williams from whence he came. Go back and get under the rock you came from.
Although it is a different team now. I mean, we talked about this also 2 weeks ago, right? Like it's a different Williams now than when he was there.
And it's in my notes. Now they're saying it could be a swap with Williams, or even at Alfa Romeo taking Kimi's place. Mm-hmm. But Bottas remains elusive about his future. And here's what he said, quote, I prefer to keep that to myself, whether he's been talking to other teams. Maybe I haven't. And maybe I have. You see what he did there?
Mm-hmm.
So crafty. But I have many people behind me, and for sure, they have not been just resting at home and doing nothing.
No, what am I paying them for? Right?
I pay them 10%. So he says, so of course, you need to get a sense of what is available out there and what are the possibilities. I have a feeling that I have not been told exactly how far discussions have been in other places because I'm focusing on the racing. But I am sure there will be plenty of time to discuss that during the break. And if it's needed for me to speak with other teams, then I will. Now, look, I don't think he's thinking about that. He's just thinking about talking to other teams. Right. I think he has been talking to other teams for quite some while. But I do think this swap to Williams, before you poo-poo that, it, as Grace mentioned, it could be at a decent time, as the team just recently announced that they no longer need paying drivers, right? Now, that has me a little worried about your friend and mine, Nick Latifi, who is a paying driver, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of Nutella money going on there.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that wasn't Williams saying, yeah, you know what, we don't need paid drivers anymore. We could take the likes of Valtteri Bottas.
All right, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I'm taking my Tella and I'm going home. Good luck. See how long you last.
So if Bottas goes to Williams, you're hanging in there with Nutella Boy.
Yeah.
All right.
I think as we discussed, I think Valtteri Williams would be good. I think him and Alpha would be good. Those are really his only two options as well, right?
Here's in my mind's eye, I would like to see it go this way probably won't, but I'd like to see Valtteri go back to Williams because the team is on the uptick and they could use a guy that's been doing a lot of development at a top team, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I like that idea better than Alpha. Why? Because I want to see Mick Schumacher go to Alpha and get out of that Haas.
Yeah, right.
That's what I want to see.
Yes.
Yep. So there
anywhere would be better.
Yeah, exactly.
For Mick, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think so. I think either place. And, Kimi seemed over Formula One for a long time. Even when he won his championship, he seemed kind of over Formula One. Now he really seems over Formula One.
Seems over it now, yeah. Well, there's nothing like having a kid or two, kind of changes perspective.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, he's just, bothered by it now. Well, you don't have to be here, sir.
Yeah.
I can go somewhere else.
Right.
Sorry we bothered you. So we were just talking about how people on social media, right, can be a little nutso and a little too much. Well, somebody posted this. I guess Valtteri posted a picture of him relaxing in this boat, right? And he's rowing these oars. Well, I love people's comments. Somebody was like, those oars look like the shape of a W. He's definitely going to Williams. I love the idea of people oh, that boat has a blue tinge to it. I bet he's going to Williams. All these kind of because that's always what people try to read into every sign. Right. And so I was people are very creative as well. That I was just oh, that's a lovely sunset. Look at you, Valtteri Bottas. Other people way funnier than I am. So
right.
I thought they did a pretty good job trying to figure out how many Easter eggs were hidden in what was probably just a randomly nice photo of Valtteri Bottas rowing a boat into a sunset.
I know. Yeah, and it's the same way. I see that and someone point that out and I go, wait a minute. And I look at it and say, yeah.
What are you, a wizard, a genius? Why didn't you tell me that before?
I'm like, hey, you're right. That is that,
Oh my gosh.
The inside of that boat is Williams blue.
Right. See, I totally, but I'm the person that has to watch all the YouTube videos because I'm the 7 things about Loki that you didn't notice. I'm I didn't notice any of those things.
right.
I don't
watch it
know.
that closely.
Right. I just thought it was a fun TV show that I enjoyed. You're right. I didn't see the 24 Easter eggs in that one scene. Thanks for pointing that out for me. So people are very, very clever, very creative.
Very clever. Well, here's an Easter egg that Aston Martin's trying to find.
Yeah, it's about this much.
Yeah, it's about 0.7 of a liter. That's what they're looking for. So Aston Martin struggled today because the FIA denied the team the right to review the disqualification case with Vettel's car in Hungary. They've not said whether they will appeal that or not, or at least at the time of this recording they hadn't. They did say that they have new evidence that Vettel's car had 1.7 liters of fuel in it at the end of the race, but the FIA said at the time that there was only 0.3 liters, so they gave them a DSQ and a race second place finish in Hungary. So the team is said to be considering to appeal. And that's what the team said. They said, quote, there was and is no suggestion that Vettel's Aston Martin, a Congress Formula One team, AMR 21 car benefited from a performance advantage from the alleged regulatory breach or that it was deliberate. Yes, that, okay. Here's my thing, Grace. I think it's going to be tough to appeal this.
What other evidence can you provide? That's what I'm saying. We turn the ketchup bottles upside down. What are you bringing?
I don't know. I mean, did you say, we found another liter. It was all sopped up by this rag on the floor.
It was under my couch.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we put it in Otmar's juice. It was a joke. I don't know, but here's what the FIA said today. They said, quote, the technical regulations unequivocally call for a remaining amount of 1 liter and does not allow any exceptions. Therefore, for the assessment of whether or not 1 liter requirement was broken, it does not make a difference why there was less than 1 liter. There may be a couple of explanations why at the end of the race, the remaining amount is insufficient. In any case, it remains the sole responsibility of the competitor to ensure the car is in conformity with the regulations at all times, and it shall be no defense to claim that no performance advantage was obtained.
Right.
In order to affirm a relevant fact, Aston Martin would have had to present facts that actually more than 1 liter of fuel is remaining. The explanation why this requirement could not be met is not relevant to the decision as to whether a breach of the regulations has occurred. So that does not look good, Grace.
What is this, like adding water to your parents' liquor bottles so that they know you and your friends didn't drink it while they were out?
Right,
You know,
right.
right? Like, what is this? I don't know. I just think that I don't know what other evidence you could bring. You didn't have it. You can argue why you didn't have it, but like they said, that didn't matter. And they require this so often, you know, like how
after every
like
race.
some one-off rule. Like
Yeah.
And-
No, they
and-
know about it.
and it's not broken all that time. So clearly people know how to calculate how much fuel's in there at the end of the race and make sure that there's that 1 liter. I don't know what Aston Martin possibly could do. Now, maybe you have to fight it to save some face, or you have to put that forward that you're fighting. You don't want to look like we're just going to take it, but I don't know. And maybe, you know, maybe Larry was like, I don't accept this. I don't accept that you guys are just going to accept it. We will fight it. And they're like, well, okay, you're the boss. We'll give it another try, sir.
Yeah, maybe. It's why it surprised me when Sky said, "Oh, you know, he stopped on the side track. He's probably out of gas." And that won't matter. And I think I understand what they're saying. They weren't saying he was literally out. They meant they were down to the limit of what was, you know, and I get that. But everybody's like, oh no, they won't penalize. And it's like, yeah, they will. If it's under 1 liter, we've seen this several times in the past, you know, and Paul and I mentioned this in the last part. I wanted to say it was BMW Sauber. Maybe Canada. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, so it is what it is. It was interesting because Helmut said the relation of penalties and punishment, and he was really kind of drawing a parallel between Vettel battling Ocon for a win and using more fuel. And Helmut said nobody saves fuel in situations like that, but it produced great racing, and he was going for it. So you get a disqualification. In the meantime, Lewis literally punts our car off the track, and, you know, there's no disqualification. He said the relation to, I think he's talking about the penalty in relation to what the regulation breach is or the infraction is.
But it's a pretty big infraction. I mean,
Yeah.
So to me, when I heard this quote, I was like, oh, again, I know that you're a Red Bull, so you have to create that narrative. But if it was just you and I talking and you said that to me, I'd say, Todd, those are two unrelated events. What happens to Lewis has nothing to do with what happens to Sebastian Vettel, right? These aren't related. And so that's a false dichotomy to say, well, this was such a harsh penalty and this one wasn't harsh enough, right? These are unrelated. So I think still focusing on what Aston Martin's got going on, they have to there's so many ways you can cheat if we don't get to see your fuel sample, right? Like that's right. It's a fundamental component of this car that we require as the FIA to see for a reason, right? Whereas a racing incident where somebody hits another driver off the track is a very different and unrelated event. You know, you have to give us that sample, just like we can call you in to weigh you at any time, just like the drivers have to get weighed, just like all these things, because that's how you can cheat, and we can't have that. So,
and it's pretty amazing because I didn't know this until we did that work with Shell a few years ago.
Right.
When we were in the trackside, we were in Ferrari's garage, and where the Shell lab is inside their garage, and we were in there, and he was showing me the fuels and the fuels that they ran during different sessions, and he was showing me the tolerance levels for any deviation. Slightest deviation, the FIA picks up a tolerance. The tolerance levels are narrow, and there can't be any huge deviation or even really marginal deviation in the fuel that comes out of that car at the end of the race before what was tested when you put it into that race. And it's pretty interesting. So I know they're really, really tight on that one.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is slightly related. So I saw an interview that Davide had done talking about the difference between MotoGP and Formula One. And that was really the big thing they talked about, was how much more particular Formula One, that's not the word he used, like that, how much everything is more cutting edge or more, you know, that tipping point is so much finer in Formula One than it is in MotoGP. And that, everybody is competing at the edge, but in Formula One, it's so tight and those margins are so much smaller than they are in MotoGP. And so I think that's where this plays in that these slight advantages or these slight changes in the fuel make a big difference.
Right. I think it's it's because Formula One is so meticulous.
Yeah.
In the way that it measures every single thing. I remember I was talking to David at Moto Matters, and we were having a beer one time when he was in town. I remember I was talking to him. And I know he thought I was a complete idiot for saying this, but there were some drivers that have a lot of metalwork in them.
Yeah, for sure.
Bunch, know. And because they broke this, they got metal there, they got metal there, they got metal there, and they always talk about, that it's heavy and that sort of thing. And so I was thinking about that because I am from the Formula One world where every single little ounce is measured in a Formula One car. Every single possible ounce of whatever component is going where, because that's a balance issue. And all of the drivers are all down to this minimum weight category, right? It's not like, you've got tubby, Terry over here and
that has to be Tubby Tony Stewart. Tubby Tony over
Tubby
here.
Tony, so that it's like me walking out there, right? So that doesn't happen because it's measured to that finite level. And I was thinking, if some riders have a lot of metalwork in them and you try to get them all down to the bare minimum, some people are going to be a little heavier, because maybe their frame's a little bigger. They got a little more metal in them. Who knows? They're going to be a little bit heavier, than others. And if the governing body takes the health of the weight of a rider, you can't be emaciated. We went through that with F1, right?
Right.
Because these guys were starving themselves. So I was thinking, so some riders might be naturally a little heavier than others, and that I would imagine, having an impact on the game. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? You're an idiot, And I agree with him, but this is just the way my mind works in Formula One because all of that is measured, every single ounce of fluid in there.
For sure. I mean, and I think Mark Marquez is, that guy's got a lot of metal in his body. I mean, like you were saying, they all do, right? And that, none of them can go through metal detectors, et cetera, et cetera. It's just kind of crazy what the MotoGP riders go through to keep doing this. But
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. But I was thinking, if there's a little larger guy in MotoGP and he's got, a lot of metal in him and, he's a little heavier, well, then that would be an impact on your bike's performance and all of those things. But MotoGP, like Davide was saying, it's just not measured at that level.
Right. So
where Formula One is. All right, fair enough. Hey, things got crazy in Nashville.
They sure did.
Woo! That was that was kind of crazy, wasn't it? Did you happen to see any of that IndyCar race, the inaugural IndyCar race from?
I did not. I wasn't sure when you were. I did not, but I did read about it. So
okay, I know it's kind of like.
What does it all mean, Basil?
No idea. Well, let me give you a quick synopsis. Yep. I know this is a Formula One podcast, but there is a tie-in, folks. Bear with me. The race in Nashville for IndyCar had 9 caution periods covering 33 of the total 80 laps of the race. It was a crazy weekend. The race was red flagged twice, and it took nearly 4 hours to complete the race. It was crazy.
Could you imagine having to listen to Crofty for 4 hours? I think that is the best. I mean, we all know how much I'm a big fan of the FIA radio to the team principals during the red flags, but really it's just because some of it is now that's like 10 minutes. I don't have to listen to Crofty for some brief moment. So
you could be listening to PT for 4 hours over.
Yeah,
IndyCar,
see that I'd rather. I think I might rather listen to Crofty than listen to PT for 4 hours. But I just think, that's and the red flags. They get a little long. You're just like, okay, we have nothing left here to talk about.
Right. So that was crazy. And the bizarre thing of this, folks, was that Romain Grosjean forgot to warn his French buddy, Sebastian Bourdais, about the Swede, Marcus Ericsson. who literally drove over the top of Seabass, flying through the air, flies over the top, slams down on the pavement, loses his front nose, goes in, shades the front nose, gets a penalty for it, goes in, serves the penalty, and the Swede comes out and wins the race. Are you kidding me? I've been saying this for years. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you don't F with the Swede.
That's right.
Been saying
That guy's onto something.
he served a penalty for that collision and still won. I mean, that's the sort of thing only Lewis Hamilton can do right now.
That's right. Be the only one at the
amazing.
start, go all the way around, almost
That's
get
right.
to the front. That's right.
You can literally punt people, get a penalty, serve the penalty, and win the race. It's awesome.
I think it's just now. I think it's just like this is what 2021 has become everywhere, right?
I know, it's crazy.
2020 we were all kind of shell shocked, didn't know what to do. Now we're all just like, whatever. Just whatever the F you want to do. That's what we're doing now.
I know.
So I think it's just a reflection of where 2021 is right now.
I know. I'm trying to watch and hang on, running around going,
Help me, Tom Cruise!
it's crazy, man. So anyway, don't F with the Swede. Keep watching that. Hey, speaking of IndyCar, here's the good news story real quick. McLaren take IndyCar matters in their own hands. That's right. Things are turning around at McLaren, and kudos to Zach Brown for doing a great job. McLaren Racing has purchased a majority share or stake in the IndyCar team it co-owns with Aero McLaren SP. The team will be governed, this is quote, the team will be governed by a new 5-person board comprising 3 McLaren Racing appointees together with co-owners Sam Schmidt and Rick Peterson, said Zach Brown. And the whole thing will be chaired by Zach Brown, CEO of McLaren Racing. Taylor Keel, president of, is it Kill or Kyle? I would say could be either. I don't know. I don't follow it that closely, folks. Sorry. I know it's Capito, though. Don't make fun of me if I don't know this guy's name.
It should be Kill, but
yeah, I
don't
would
know.
think so.
Right.
President of Aero McLaren SP will continue to lead and oversee the operations of the team, reporting directly to the board. Today's announcement is a strong signal of our long-term commitment to IndyCar as both a racing series, hubba, and a marketing platform for McLaren Racing and our sponsor partners. Well said. McLaren continues, I want to pay tribute to Sam Schmidt and Rick Peterson, who, together with the commitment and support of Aero Electronics, have built a formidable team for us to keep growing and fulfill our common ambition of consistently challenging for wins, Indy 500s, and series titles. Key to this is the continued leadership of Taylor Kiel as president of the team, who has been instrumental to the progress of the partnership so far, end quote. Anyway, nice quote.
Yeah.
Nice move from McLaren. Great to see them. Look, a few short months ago, they were running around with a hat in hand asking people for a few shekels, right?
Yeah.
And now they're buying the majority of the IndyCar team. Well, that's great news.
That is great news. I think that continues to build that partnership between IndyCar and Formula One. And I think that, was a thing and it wasn't a thing. And maybe
it sort of was.
More of a
And
thing.
It sort of, was that kind of in the Champ Car days, kind of
Yeah,
had that, yeah.
So I think it's good for both IndyCar and for Formula One, because both are going to have the same problem of we have more talent than we have places to put them. And so to be friendly with each other as opposed to frenemies, thanks Tony George, to kind of bring that relationship back together, that you can have drivers like Roman Grosjean or Fernando Alonso, racing in your sport. And that's good for everybody.
Yeah, it is.
And hopefully you could bring some talent from IndyCar into Formula One in some capacity. I think that relationship used to really work well, and no, not so much. So
I know. I kept thinking
it's good.
Greg Moore would be a natural to bring over to F1 before he was tragically killed.
Yeah,
I was a Greg
absolutely.
Moore fan. Hey, and just want to tip the hat to Robin Miller. I had no idea he was going through what he's going through health-wise. And so I read that letter over at Racer Magazine. Very sad what he's going through. So, Robin's a long-time journalist in IndyCar and Indianapolis, and has always been a go-to read, for
Absolutely.
IndyCar, because he called it out, whether you liked it or not. And I always respected that. I didn't always agree maybe with his assessment. And usually when when F1 converts would come over or whatever, he'd have a poke at F1 now and then. I didn't agree with it. But that's okay. I enjoyed his work. So yeah, anyway,
Absolutely.
yeah, just we're thinking of him in this challenging time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Last news story I wanted to say before we get to Albon's cats is that Ferrari, the current engine homologation limits or restricts the team to just one update from last year's engines. And all the other teams hit the ground running this year with their updated engines, except for Ferrari, who has not released all the changes they wanted to make to the 2021 power unit. They're going to do that. Mattia Binotto said it won't happen before the Italian Grand Prix. That means that Charles Leclerc will have to run a current spec engine for Belgian Grand Prix. But they said the power unit's under development. It means they're going to be bringing updates. And at the start of the season, they said we didn't complete the entire power unit update or design upgrade, and so they're going to complete that the balance of the year. So will it pay dividends? Well, I don't know.
But what the last 8 races? Why not wait until the very end, Ferrari?
I mean, as a Ferrari fan, I hope they come out and start winning races, but I don't see that happening. But what it could do is help them in their battle against McLaren. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Yeah. I am not a Ferrari fan, but of course I'd like to see them competitive, right? Like I think it makes the racing better and a more interesting watch. And I think that they have 2 very talented drivers. And, as much as I enjoy Ferrari being the butt of every joke and why don't we should switch to plan B, C, D, F, which one, right? Like as much as I enjoy all of this, it would be good for them to kind of get it together and be competitive consistently, even if they did wait till the last 8 races to do it.
Yeah, I agree. So. All right, time for little Albon's cats, and this bumper music is a throwback. Grace, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
Get in there, Lewis.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
Get in there, Lewis.
All right.
I'd like to believe that that's what Lewis Hamilton was singing to himself as he's pulling up on the start-finish line and there's nobody else around him. Well, there's no stopping me. There's no stopping me. All right.
Okay. Interesting. So Albon's cats. Here's what I got for you. So my dear friend, yes, I have a friend.
You have lots of friends, man.
Yeah, I have a couple. But I have a good friend of mine, Koen, over in Belgium. He is a fine, handsome man of incredible intellect and a really good guy. I like Koen a lot.
Right.
And so he's a big motorsport fan over there. Okay. And I endeared myself to him on my first trip to Belgium when I told him that Spa-Francorchamps was like one of my all-time favorite racetracks, and the Belgians nailed it, right? So anyway, he sent me this interesting article, and I didn't put the whole article, but it was about watch brands in Formula One.
Oh.
Now, we often think about this. So the starting time is Rolex. That's sponsored by Rolex. You see the Richard Mille watches on a lot of the drivers. Right. You see the Tag Heuers on Red Bull. Lewis with the IWC graphic on his racing gloves. You see that, right? So he sent me this article of how much watch brands spend in Formula One.
Whew,
At the top of the heap is Rolex. And they're an estimated $45 million for that.
Wow.
Richard Mille, the McLaren Group and Ferrari, $13 million. Tag Heuer, Red Bull Racing, $10 million. IWC, Mercedes-Benz, $10 million. And the Bremont Watch Company for Williams, $5 million.
That's crazy.
Isn't
Even
that
5
crazy
million,
money?
that's crazy.
I know. 5 million to have George, walk around with his watch on.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's impressive money if you consider the fact that these are all, primarily, not all of them, but primarily analog wristwatches, and everybody's got an Apple Watch on nowadays.
Yeah, right? It's right. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it makes spending $60 on a watch band not seem so bad now, does it?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But it tells me stuff.
Yeah, I know.
It's very useful.
Yeah, well,
My analog watches didn't tell me anything. Some of them didn't even tell me the time very well.
Right. So that's good. What do you got, Albin's Cats?
All right. So I have it just told me that it's 9:00 my time. It's my wind down time. See, my watch tells me all kinds of things.
Okay, we got to get through this. We got a lot to cover. It's your wind down time.
I don't know, right? So I got several things. So I know that you saw this video because you posted about it, but I call them all unboxed videos, even though that's just what McLaren calls them. But I refer to this whole genre now that all the teams, and now F1 makes all the drivers do too, as unboxed videos. So there's the Formula One unboxed video where they made all the drivers do the World Drivers Championships in reverse order.
Yeah, the Grill the Grid series they do.
Right,
yes.
right. So again, I just generically refer to them as all unboxed. Of which I still think my favorite is Aston Martin's, because anytime Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll are together, I almost called him Lance Stroll are together. It's funny because they have no chemistry, but Vettel has chemistry with everybody. So
right,
it's great. He's like
a
Labrador
it says
retriever.
more about Lance than it does Seb.
It does, right?
Yeah.
But Seb's trying so hard, right? So and plus he was teammates with Kimi Räikkönen. He can be friends with anybody, right?
Right.
You can do an unboxed video with Kimi Räikkönen. You can do it with anybody. So
right.
So you saw that video as well. And so, not a spoiler, but Vettel, not only did he know all of them, but I thought it would be very hard to do them in reverse order, right? Because the way I could do it, like if I had a piece of paper, because you could be like, okay, here are 5 are Michael's, and these are, and here's the one that Jensen got, and here's the one that Nico got. So then these ones are Lewis, and these I could fill it in, and here are the ones Alonso got, and here's one Vettel got, or the 4 Vettel got, right? Like I could kind of chunk it, but I think to just go in reverse order is really
impressive.
hard. And he just kept going. And I love that Vettel, we used to always joke, speaking of Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen, about how they would ask them questions about each other. And Vettel would pretend that he had to think when is Kimi's birthday? He knows, and he's a terrible actor. We know when Kimi's birthday is. So you could see him was it a scary that year? I don't know. Of course it was, and of course and we all know right? So so it was very impressive of Vettel that.
Well, how impressive was Max? Because he was almost there.
Almost, and especially once he got past the ones that he lived through, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, yeah, he'll get pretty far because this is his life, right? That he lived this, much like Mick Schumacher, right? There might be some advantage there because they lived this life with their dads. But I did love how when Max Verstappen was like, who was it? Oh, that was Nelson's. Don't mess those two up. Very important to get your girlfriend's father's 2 championships, right? And then he just referred to him as Nelson, which cracked me up too.
Nelson.
Oh, yeah. Me and Nelson were just hanging out yesterday, right? So
I like he referred to Nico as Brittany.
Yes, of course. Well, that joke we haven't seen in a while, so sure, throw that one in.
Throw that in.
Brittany, whatever. Yeah. I love that when Kimi Räikkönen realized that if he just missed one, then it just would be over. He
could go home.
Yeah, he was like, how many more of these do I have to do? And they're like, until you get one wrong. He's like, oh, you should have told me that. I would have said my name
missed the first one.
I would have been out of here. So he made it to 09, right? He made it to himself, but then he was like, me, just so it would be over. And then Lando kind of did the same thing. Lando was like, I'm over this. It's me. Whatever. I'm done. So I thought it was very funny. And except if you're Mika Hakkinen, I'm not sure why everybody really struggled because they were like, Michael. Mika?
That was just twice.
I know, right? But I was like, but I knew that because that's when I first started watching. So I knew that those were the 2. But it was just funny to watch everybody kind of go, So we're Mika Hakkinen. I hope he never watches that video because I feel really, I have some low self-esteem after watching that video that nobody but Vettel really kind of knew the answer to who won.
Right.
99 and 98. So that was a little rough for Mika, I think. But
Yeah.
I thought of the videos that was pretty enjoyable and
that
pretty
one was
hard.
great. It was
That was
hard.
really hard.
I actually was doing really well. I got down to, I was kind of tracking along, but in all honesty, just telling on myself, I would have lost in the mid and early 80s. I had the names, but I didn't have the sequence right. I didn't have the right years.
Yeah, for sure. I think
And it
I
was
would've-
sort of like that Prost Senna. So Prost had two,
Right.
Senna, and then I get into the late 80s and the mid 80s, and all of a sudden, so I
Yeah.
know that Lauda, and then I lost it there.
Yeah.
And there were some early
was very- I
70s
was
that I
very much-
kind of missed.
Yeah, I was very much like Ricciardo, like Prost.
Yeah, right,
like
right.
Senna.
Senna, yeah,
I know that's roughly in here somewhere, and so
yeah.
I thought again. That's why I think it would be really hard to go backwards. Like I'd have to go. Wait, how many times did I say Lewis? Wait, how many times did I say Michael? Because there's kind of a chunk in there, but you're like,
Yeah.
how many did I say? So, but yeah, I totally was like Ricciardo because playing along, I was like, whoa, Senna.
I know, that's so good.
Mansell's in here somewhere, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah. So you guys have to go watch it. It's a good video.
Yeah, it
I
was
posted
good.
a story on it. So
That
you
was
can
good.
watch it.
So that's
Cool.
how I knew you saw that.
Yes.
Earlier we had talked about Vettel losing his podium position,
Mm.
and I just wanted to note that Vettel's loss of position was my gain for my fantasy team. So the Houston Scuderios made a place out of that to move ahead of the Fart of Racing. So
That's a real bummer. It's a real bummer, Grace.
I'm so buried in 45th or something, but
Yeah.
we did gain a spot out of Vettel's loss.
Oh.
And I had two more things. So one
All
more
right.
was speaking of people's gains out of somebody else's loss, poor Carlos Sainz, right? Like,
Mm.
first of all, so did you see the video when he's being interviewed with Will Buxton and they tell him that he has to go to report to the stewards?
Yeah, I saw him turn around and just walk off.
Like, so Charlie Brown, like that was terrible.
It was. Yeah, he just like walked
Yeah,
off.
I
It
was
was like
Oh.
it's like an
And then it was-
automaton.
And then it was just for you left your T-shirt on too long. Like, really, you had to call him right now to tell him he left his T-shirt on too
Yeah.
long. That was unnecessary.
Poor
but
Carlos.
I know the look on his face, and he was just like, "Really, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go now, right?"
Right.
And then yet another podium that he gets off a podium, right? Like, so then they just show him afterwards and a picture, celebrating with the team again.
Yay.
Not on the podium, but
Yeah.
got a podium. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like poor Carlos. Like,
I
really,
know.
that guy
Got
needs to catch a
robbed.
break. I know. So
Yeah.
anyway, Carlos. And then we had mentioned MotoGP earlier, but so the other big news was Rossi's retiring at the end of the season. So
Mm.
that's he hasn't said what he's doing in the future. He's already pretty involved in the team side of MotoGP, so I'm sure he'll continue to show up in MotoGP races, and I'm sure he's only in his 40s. He's gonna keep doing stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll see where else he shows up. But I think I'm sure it was a hard decision. He's been literally doing this for
Yeah.
his entire life, and
Right.
but things haven't been working out so well for him. So
Yeah.
I was hoping to get to see him again race, but I guess I won't.
Yeah.
Hashtag
Well, maybe
thanks,
he'll go
COVID.
hang out with Lando.
Maybe. I still think when they were talking together a couple years ago and Rossi goes, "You could be my child." I'm like, yeah, I hate it when that happens. Like,
Scary.
you could be my child. That's never a good thought. But
That's right.
yeah. So I hope that he continues to support Morbidelli. He keeps continuing to support that team, and we'll see what else Rossi's got going for us. But yep, this is going to be the last season for him as a rider.
Sad
I
face.
know,
All right.
I know. But
All right,
he still has
let's-
the best merch, and I'm sure that's not
Oh,
going
yeah,
anywhere either.
for sure.
So
No. Let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
Brian Williams asks, do you like his music?
Brian Williams.
Yeah.
I don't. Do I know who Brian? I don't think I know who Brian Williams is.
Okay. All right. I was just asking if you like, his music or.
Sure. Do you like Brian Williams' music?
I don't know if he's a musician, but if he is, I'm sure I would like it.
Why did you ask? I thought you made this like. I feel like you went. Phil Collins. Do you like Phil Collins music? I don't know who Phil Collins is. Thanks for asking, Todd. Like, you put that out
I
there,
don't know.
like
You know
somebody
what?
I know. I don't know who
Our
this is.
friend Brian Williams could be a musician.
He could be.
I was just wondering if he was, and I thought maybe you might be in the know. He could be an expert biathlete, cross-country skier and marksman. No one knows.
I don't know.
What
I
Brian
do
Williams is
love
at.
any sport that involves some shooting. And
Yeah, me too.
I really got into archery this Olympics as well. So
Oh, there you
never
go.
know. You never know. It's good stuff.
Brian says, Todd, Paul, Grace, mine, give us your thoughts on F1 TV. I remember the struggles you all had in the initial launch of the product, and I've honestly been holding off and getting at least a basic version until I can get a report of the experience to someone I trust, namely the three of you. Please let me know, as I'm missing the ability to at least go back and watch the race. Well, yeah. So Brian, when it first came out, it was full of issues, and really struggled. It's gotten a lot better now, as far as buffering and all that, and I think they've improved that. I think the onboard cameras, so if there's something happening, you can quickly jump over to onboard, see that's worth it. The one thing I kind of wish so I'll be honest with you, I did not. My subscription was up in June or July, and I didn't renew it. And the only reason I didn't isn't because I don't like the service. I do like the service, and I probably will renew it here in the next couple of weeks. But it rebroadcasts the Sky Sports broadcast, which I already get on ESPN. So a couple things I'm thinking. I'm perfectly fine with the Sky crew. I enjoy them. That's fine. But they should carry all of the Sky stuff, the pre-race, the post, all that. They don't. It's just the race, and you know what I'm saying? And so
Ted Kravitz, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I can get that on ESPN already in my package, so it's difficult to justify the cost of buying it to watch what I can already watch, other than getting the access. Now, that being said, it would be great if they as they come up with more content. I don't know, they got some young kids in there now talking F1, which I'm sure that resonates with lots of people. It doesn't necessarily with me so much, but I'm not the demographic, I think, for that. So kudos to what they're doing there, but I'm probably not the demo. So anyway, I think that I'm too old for that. It's kind of like
Talking about I feel like you're saying young kids. That guy is 38.
No, they're like, late 20s, early, something, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's great. And this is, and fast and stuff. And it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like, yeah. All right. I'd rather listen to Paul DeResta or Ant unpack a lap or talk about the stuff that they talk about.
Slightly older people.
Yes. And been around the sport a long time and understand it.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. Right. So that's kind of my feeling on it. But Brian, yes, if you don't get it, going back and watching races is great. The other thing that I did enjoy, and the reason I am going to probably renew, is because you can go back and watch historic races, which is great.
Yeah.
Not all of them, which I wish there were, because there's a few that other people would find really pedestrian, but I really enjoyed, right? So anyway, you can go back and watch those old races too, and those are great. So go ahead, Grace.
No, I mean, I was going to add, right, that's always great. I've never subscribed to F1 TV, so I really can't add anything to this question, but I do agree. I do wish that, there was some way to get more of that content. Again, I often note my annoyance that I have to wait until somebody, cribs Ted's Notebook on YouTube so that I can watch it, right? Like,
right.
It
sucks.
How all this content. And then I think about, now it's not as bad, right? You're much more interconnected. We have, more technology at our fingertips, but 20 years ago, if it wasn't on, speed and you didn't watch it, right? Like there wasn't another option. And so if you're really just trying to get content out to people, especially in countries where this isn't, a sport that people know about, right? Like, I just remember there was a picture again a year ago, like Idris Elba got COVID and he's like standing with other people, and they point out who everybody is but Lewis Hamilton. Like, people here don't know who that guy is, but he's standing 2 feet from Idris Elba, who they just told me who has COVID, right? So I think that if you're going to grow a sport, or if you're going to have something that's going to keep people interested and engaged, and this is the way to do it. And I agree that historic races are great, because the same thing happens in MotoGP, or you hear somebody talk about, like, Spa 98. Well, what about it? Right. Like, so the best way to get that experience is to watch it, and to watch the whole race, and to have somebody who is able to tell you what thing, like a Steve Matchett or somebody, right? They can go, oh, and then this happened, and here's the context, and here's all the, I always loved his, Legends. Is that what it was? His little, that he did, where they condensed the races, because they were 2 hours races, and they condensed them into an hour, and then he talked you through and they did the whole season, and it was great, because then he like, I caught it like the 80s into the 90s, which is when I didn't watch. Right. But it's also when Steve was in the sport. So it was really great to get that context, because it's all these things you hear about from the old timers like Todd, but how great racing used to be that I didn't watch. And so I think anytime you can give people access to old races. I mean, wait, every sport in this country, NFL has a channel, NBA has a channel. You know what they show? Golf. You know what they show? All the old sporting events, right? Yeah. Like, that's what they show when they're not showing current things. And so this is clearly a profitable market. So that is unfortunate. Is it because Bernie still owns them? Is that why they're not? No, they're just not on
I don't
there.
know why they put them on there. I don't know if there's copyright issues or what it is. But
just
anyway, they're really good. If you can watch the old ones. And the other thing is, I kind of felt like F1 TV missed a real opportunity. They had Jason Swales as producer there, and Will, and Jason's a brilliant guy and a good guy. And they could have, in my mind, I don't know. I kind of wish they would have let Jason and Will really, let the leash off and let them start unpacking the sport and creating constant content, I know they kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a Will thing. Maybe he wanted to set up the big desk in the pit lane or in the paddock and do it like a Will Buxton's, post race, I don't know, Conan O'Brien show or something. But, that, I don't know, is okay. But I think, why is it that isn't resonating as much as like Ted's Notebook? It's because Ted's Notebook is delivering some really great content.
Yeah, right.
And it's just Ted's delivery and his view on things.
It's interesting.
It is interesting, right? And I know Jason knows that. And I know, I felt like those guys could have been really unpacking the sport and spending time with mechanics and spending time to really bring a lot of the sport to fans, which is what Netflix is kind of doing now, And I kind of felt like they had a real opportunity that they kind of missed on that. They still could do it, but miss it. I don't know if Jason's still there. But anyway, all right. Next question. Mr. Drury asked regarding Sub's recent
also
DSP
a musician.
Yes, that's right. Also, I believe he plays the pan flute. Regarding
the Brian Williams band.
And the Brian Williams band. Yes. I'm rather surprised that they don't design these fuel bladders to have a side piece that would always guarantee the correct amount of fuel is retained for testing. Any idea? Well, one would think that they would have some sort of backup thing that always has that amount of fuel just kind of sitting there. But the fuel bladder itself, I think there are some regulations around the fuel bladder and how it is designed and what it does.
Thanks, BA or Honda.
Yes, right. That's
where I learned the most about what the fuel bladder is. Like, nothing like a scandal to teach you something about your sport, right? Like, well, I didn't even know that was a thing.
That's right. So if you're not, look up the BAR Honda fuel scandal.
Fuelgate. I'm sure it's
Fuelgate. And you'll see how they were getting around the fuel tank issue. That was a hot topic back then. So I think the FIA is very particular nowadays of what is in that fuel bladder and how it works.
But I think, so I would imagine, so I don't actually know the answer to this question. And this is a very good question, and we should find somebody that knows the answer and have them answer this question intelligently. But I think the only thing I could think of is everything adds weight, right? Or adds more space or makes things, less that you have to work with as an engineer. So this seems like, well, we could just mathematically calculate how much fuel we need, or we could build this extra component. Let's just calculate it.
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the only reason I could think of that maybe they don't do something like this, that there isn't.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
fuel.
free to make a fuel bladder, which is a malleable, it's not like a hard metal box, it's a bladder, and you could make a portion of it where it would hold 1.7 liters of fuel.
Always.
So you fill it up and it's always got that, and then your intake isn't taking fuel ever from that particular section. I don't know. Seems like they would come up with ways to ensure that they've always got 1.7. It's a great point.
That's a good question.
Anthony, come and meet Anthony. Anthony asked, my question has two parts. You'd have to be Doc Martin to know the come meet Anthony reference. Even as a longtime F1 fan since Mansell Mania days, wow, I don't really recall anything as odd as Lewis Hamilton lining up on the grid by himself. Number one, what would the start procedure have looked like had he pitted also and everyone started from the pit lane? Would the green flag dude have still walked across the back of the track by himself? Would the start light sequence have still happened? Is there even a rule for this situation? I think
it would have looked something like this.
I think it actually, had everyone dove in the pits, everyone would be starting from the pits, and I think the start sequence would have happened just like it normally does.
Right.
I think the 5 lights would have come on, the 5 lights would have off, and everybody would come out of the pits. Yeah, because whether they're grid up or not, that's the start of the race.
Right.
Yeah, that's my hunch. What is the oddest thing you've ever seen in F1?
Me besides Chase Carey's mustache.
Lawrence Stroll sticking his hand down the front of his pants and adjusting his junk right in front of Claire Williams' face, literally inches away. That would be weird.
Wow. Yeah, that was that's weird.
That was really strange. What is the oddest things you've seen? I'm gonna have to go with Max Mosley on that one.
Again, a good choice.
Very odd. That was, I can't unsee that.
I always think, when Ron Dennis drug Kimi Räikkönen's physio down the pit lane by his ear, also was a very odd occurrence that all these years later still sticks with me. Like, don't be his kids. That was not good. You're two grown men. This is not okay.
That was not okay. I think that was weird.
I'm trying to think of things like with the cars on the track as opposed to just like humans interacting with
cars
each other.
on the track. Well, Indy 2005 was weird.
Let's never talk about that again.
Yeah. Singapore 2008.
Yeah.
The crash gate, that was weird. That was awful strange. I think the one was at David Coulthard where both front wheels and the whole thing, the suspension just flew off the car.
Right.
That was weird. The crazy guy at Silverstone running down Hangar Straight. Right.
That was early. That was like 03, 02.
Yeah, and then the German ex-Mercedes employee, ran out on track. That was weird.
All of Spygate was weird.
Yeah, Spygate was weird, and especially at the end of Spygate, where Ron comes out of the motorhome to stand there and shake hands with Max Mosley. Man, the look on his face. Oh, all right. You talk about hatred. Hated each other. I also thought, what did Max Mosley call Jackie Stewart? A certifiable, what did he call him? Oh, it's going to escape me now, but it was weird. It was very demeaning of Jackie.
Right. Somebody who's done so much for the sport. Both on the track and off. This is a slight tangent, but it reminded me because you had mentioned the awkward handshake, which then made me think of Vettel and Weber, which then made me think of this video that I recently watched that Aston Martin put off.
Grace, certified half-wit. That's what he called Jackie.
Certified half-wit.
Anyway,
See, I'm just giving you some time there to think.
Yep.
But anyway, so I had watched this, was watching BBC News, and they had Lewis Hamilton on, and he was talking to these school kids, and he was trying to tell them, like, be good, stay in school, do your job, right? And this is really important in your education. And the one kid goes, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna stay real hard. And the girl, without missing a beat, goes, yeah, what about Max Verstappen? Like, why don't you up your game there, buddy? I just like that she just gave it right back to Lewis, who just gave her this whole thing about you stay in school and you be really smart. And she's like, how about you take it to Max Verstappen? How about you do that? And Lewis just kind of went, all right, yeah, I'll do my job if you do yours. And then there was a video that Aston Martin put out with Vettel, because it really, I don't know where they find these school kids is where this is going. British school kids must be different. I don't know. But so Vettel is talking to these kids. I don't know that they are British, but he's talking to these school kids and they're asking him questions. You know, he's talking about his, you know, his environmental thing and, you know, how we can be good for the planet and what he's there for. BWT has a new water thing. That was great. Grace water, where you can take tap water and make it into better water. Anyway, so he was working with BWT on this. And so they go to question and answers. And the one kid asks them, well, don't you feel like a hypocrite being in a sport like Formula One and you're here telling us about how great the environment is? Question one. Question two is, well, what are you doing, Sebastian Vettel, in your house to make your house better and more environmental? I'm like, dang, these kids are hard. The third kid goes, are you still friends with Mark Webber? See, if I was Vettel, I'd be like, where the hell do you find these kids? I'm out.
Are these plants?
Right. Like, but no, he answered them all really well, you know, and he was like, oh, I'm friends with Mark. We've always been friends. You know, it was a long time ago, not a big thing. But I was just like, these kids are killing them, you know, like.
That's funny.
Dang, where do they find these kids that they put on these interviews? I would have been like, yes, Mr. Vettel, that sounds great. Thanks for coming to talk to us. No, that is not how these school kids played.
You know, Grace, you don't need the BW. You can boil water. And
I can't remember. I know, but there was like because the big thing is getting rid of one-use plastic.
Yeah,
so it was somehow
Makes
tied
sense.
into the one-use plastic. I just now can't remember what the water thing was.
So you get like the Brita filter thing.
Yeah.
You know, or you just put it on the stove and boil it.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I use the Brita filter thing. I'm saying that it was some sort of a clever. Well, I don't boil my water every day. That seems unnecessary. My tap water is probably perfectly fine.
Is it?
I don't know. I still use a Brita filter. So
have you checked?
Is it? I don't know. I haven't grown any extra eyeballs so far.
No. Hey, Anthony. He says, love the podcast. Keep it. Well, thanks, Anthony.
I'll find it. Anyway, I'll find out what BWT has created, but that's why he was talking about it. And those kids were cruel. Anthony
is down under.
All right.
In Australia. G'day, mate. How about that? He's Brit born, though.
All right.
How about
From
that?
Kent.
And he's a Patreon supporter.
Yay.
Awesome, Anthony.
Always
You're
good.
a good man. Come and meet Anthony. All right.
Okay.
That does it for this podcast, but be sure to stop by the website and share your opinions. Do it with decorum and civility. As always, if you like this podcast, go over to iTunes and give us a good rating. Show us some love over there. Also, thank you to all of our Patreon supporters out there, because if it wasn't for you, we would not and could not do this podcast at all. So thank you. If you aren't a Patreon supporter, please find one and pat them on the back and tell them thank you, because it is because of them that we have this podcast. And if you are so inclined, you can go to our website, theparcferme.com. On the right-hand side, click on our Patreon support us button and support us for as little as $1 a month. And that would be much, much appreciated. And then we will be back next week to do this all over again, because there will be news. Even though it is the summer break, there will be news next week. So next week, we'll be back. Until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long, Grace.
See you next week.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.